Hey, what's up guys? JB here. Welcome back to Future Look. We have a much anticipated episode this week. This is a unit a lot of people have been talking about and have been waiting for with great anticipation pretty much ever since she was first announced. And this is none other than Raph, the final unit to be released from the Another Story event, and she will be the Dark Warrior of the Crystal. Now, Raph will be the latest 100 cost unit to join the Dark Element, and she will be set to join us here on the global side in roughly 2.5 to 3 months. And she is set to serve a role that the Dark Element really has needed for quite some time, and that is that sort of next generation frontline tank. Now, when I first saw this unit back before we really knew anything about her or the story, I said flat out that this looks like an emo or hot topic version of Katone, and it turns out that she is anything but. So without further ado, let's see what this unit is actually all about. So Raph will be a 100 cost dark unit. She has a base 3/1 movement and she can wear hats and cloth. Starting with the TMR, I'm not a huge fan of this one. The effect I'd say is pretty niche. It has 2 casts of a +1 jump with a 25% HP effect for 3 turns. Now, we do already have a TMR that does serve a similar purpose to this one. We've had Winter Victor as TMR in the game for quite some time, and it does give that +1 additional jump, and I really have never seen it used in the game all that much. Looking now at her stats, as expected for a frontline tank, big HP here for Raph. She's going to be coming in the top 5 for HP with both her base and innate values. And that innate value is especially good, coming in at nearly 6,000, which is very, very impressive. Aside from that though, there's really not a lot to say here in terms of the base stats. You can see that she is below average here in almost every other category, so very similar to what we saw with Dialdo there a few weeks ago. Now, the one thing that I will say is she does have a pretty respectable base luck value here at 179, and that definitely does help her out in the crit evade department as well, which will certainly be one of these specialties for this unit and is always nice to have on a tank. Unfortunately though, she doesn't get that much luck on her board, and she really comes down to a below average there, once that's considered. And then her accuracy, as well. She does have a accuracy passive that she can equip, but even if you do use that, she is slightly below average in terms of her innate accuracy. And, at the end of the day, this is not going to be a very accurate unit whatsoever. In terms of all the other stats here, she's really just coming in, a tick or 2 below average in just about everything. So aside from that HP value that we looked at, really nothing to write home about here in terms of the total stat picture. What about the defenses though? For a tank, that is really probably the most key area, and that's really what we want to know about. And Raph, she really does recover quite nicely here. She is getting 14 defense and 4 spirit to start off. Definitely very nice to have a little bit of both there to kind of have that base layer of mitigation. Adding to that, she does have very well-rounded resistances here as well. She's getting a whopping 25 to strike, 15 to both slash and magic, and then 10 to missile. She does have just a single weakness here, and it is to that pierce damage, but it is just coming in at a -5 value, so something that I think you can cover over very easily through gearing or espers or etc. So overall here, very solid starting points here for her mitigation. For the ailment resistances, Raph is going to get 50% to paralyze and confuse, and then 10% to slow. So really none of the big ones are going to be covered here. It's a little bit concerning because Raph in a lot of cases might be a unit that some people are running at a high faith value just because she does run on that magic skill damage. So, ailments, certainly could be a concern for her too, and maybe one way to actually shut her down. I will say though that confuse resistance is going to be very nice for a unit that we are expecting very soon here in global, and that is going to be Kefka. His limit burst does have a very high chance to confuse your targets. For a mastery ability, Raph is going to get that 5 area resist and then 5 initial hate. Always vital to have that, to be a functional tank in the game, so good that we get that starting point here. When you do awaken her up to level 140, she's going to add to that 10 unit resist and then 10 crit evade, which I did include in those stats above. Her job 25 ability is also going to be picking up an upgrade, and that's going to convert it over to a guaranteed hit attack. So actually this is overall a very, very nice 140 mastery here for Raph. For her reincarnation, Raph is obviously going to be tagged as that frontline tank who does deal magical damage. So 3,300 potential HP, 20 crit evade, and then 90 magic is going to be up for grabs here at full reincarnation. And I think for folks out there who have been saving those scrolls diligently, I do think for autoplay, tanks are definitely one of the better investments that you can make. 3,300 HP, certainly is going to allow her to, take another hit in battle in most cases. So that is definitely quite nice. Okay, let's take a look at the passives and counters. For an all-purpose build and auto play, passive number 1, I'm going to say, is going to be an essential one. Not only are you going to get some additional bulk here with the HP and defense, but she's also going to be picking up another 5 hate, and so that's going to get her up to 10 undispellable hate right out of the gate. And that will be matching kind of the current modern standard and matching a few other tanks out there in the game. In most cases, I think that I would pair that with option number 3. As we saw there in the base stats, Raph's agility is a bit low by modern standards, and she does need this agility to kind of help keep pace with that. Speed is always important for a tank to try and avoid kind of getting chained on by the enemies as much as you can. Now, another possibility might be to look at passive number 2. You can pick up even more defense there and then some accuracy. I do think, though, that it's going to be pretty difficult to build Raph into a hyper-accurate state unless you literally dedicate every slot in your builds, towards accuracy and luck, which is really never all that ideal for a tank. So I'm not sure how often I would use this one. On the other hand, it is definitely nice to have, just a little bit of accuracy on your tank so that, you don't start missing those sort of moderately evading units out there on the battlefield. Now, there's definitely a couple of other nice options here in the list, and I really think there's going to be a time and place for pretty much all of them. Now, even this cast time reduction, I think that can be even useful for her if you do run her as a scholar sub. She does have some long cast time skills in that one. For the counter abilities, Raph is kind of getting one of the next generation mitigation counters here. This one has a 100% chance of activating if the damage coming in is slash based. And if that happens, it's going to reduce it by a flat 20%. So this is definitely an amazing source of sort of passive mitigation that she has, particularly against that type of damage, assuming that they have no way to sort of turn off or reduce her counter chances. Slash to this day is still everywhere in the game, so it definitely does set Raph up to be a very strong choice against that in particular. Now, if you did find that the meta was starting to lean more in a magical direction and you were starting to face more mages out there on the battlefield, she does have her magic guard counter here from Spellblade, so that can definitely be a good choice too. All right, let's move on to Raph's main kit here next, and we're going to start with her buffs. The first one is her self buff. This one provides a 40% auto heal back ability, which will trigger when she hits a 50% HP threshold. And then on top of that, she will pick up a 50% debuff resistance there for 3 turns. So 2 very, very nice effects here coming in on this self buff. Obviously that auto heal, as we've seen with a number of units at this point, can come in super clutch to kind of help you take another hit there in battle. But then that flat debuff resist here, I think is super big. That's, you don't take maybe an early healing down that's going to negate the value of that heal back ability, but then obviously any other type of break or imperil that she might be picking up early in the battle. So this one is super, super powerful here. Now, as we've sort of been seeing with other modern tanks as of late, her second buff here is also self only. This one's going to get her a 3-hit 50% general barrier. She's also going to get 15% light and dark resist, and then she just adds a casual re-raise there to kind of top it off. It's not just any re-raise though, this one is going to be enhanced, so while that re-raise is online, Raph is going to get an additional 25 area resist, and she does get 2 casts of both of these buffs, so that is very strong. Now, as good as that first one that we looked at was, I think that this second one could be even better. It has 4 really nice effects that are going to be coming in all in one buff here, so just kind of building up a bunch of fail safes here with a barrier, a heal back, a re-raise, so it's going to be difficult for any one unit really to deal with all of these things. Now, moving into her attack skills, the first one is going to be a low AP finisher skill. This one's a range 2 with a range height of 1. It's going to be coming in with that standard low 121% mod. Just a single effect on this one, it's going to give her a buff of 20 healing power. Definitely could be very nice to sort of amp up the power of that auto heal back ability that she has if she's able to get this off early in the fight and get that online. Not really any way I would say to count on this though. Generally the AI is only breaking this out to, like I said, sort of finish off another unit. Now, skill number 2 is going to be a large diamond AoE, and the range tops out there at a total range of 5. This one has a medium 165 mod, and it does have a full break effect coming in pre-damage on this one. It's going to lower the defense and spirit of your targets by 20, and then also the attack and magic values by 30%. So this is a great skill, not only to help out with her mitigation a little bit there by kind of lowering those values, but also help amp up hers and the team's damage there on top of it. There's going to be a very good chance that she's going to be able to hit hit multiple units with this as well, just because of that large liberal targeting radius as well. If that weren't enough, this one is also a 2-hit chaining attack, so she's able to build up a little bit of elemental chain stacks there for the team to follow up on top of it. Now her third skill is going to be a range 3 with the range height of 2. It's coming in with a 185% mod. 2 very nice dispels coming in on this one prior to the damage, with both a shell and a courage removal on this one. So quite a bit of utility stacking up for Raph here so far. I can't think of anyone off the top of my head in any of the prominent dark units that did have a shell removal, so that's certainly nice for some of the mages there in the elements. And certainly we see a lot of units out there with immortal spirits, so that is just kind of the chef's kiss there on this skill. Now Raph's fourth skill here is again going to be a range of 3, but this time with just a range height of 1. It's coming in with the medium 165 mod, but prior to the damage we do have a 25% dark imperil. And then as part of the 140 Transcendence upgrade, this skill does become that guaranteed hit. Now, Dark Imperils have been a little bit hard to find, within the element, especially on a normal spammable skill like this one. And we did see within the stats overview there that Raph is not a super accurate unit, so definitely upgrading this into that guaranteed hit is super, super nice for her and gives her at least something that she could do in some of those evade matchups out there. Now, last but not least, we do have the Limit Burst here. This one's going to be another large diamond AoE attack for her. Just a single effect coming in here on this one, but it is the same one as Flagbearer Glaciella's Limit Burst, in that it will extend the elemental chain on the enemy even after they have taken an action. So pretty powerful skill here, not only for PvP, but also for PvE as well. So just kind of summing everything up here, guys, Raph is getting quite a bit of skill compression here with multiple effects on almost every one of these skills. She's going to be bringing in quite a bit of utility for that tank slot, so the kit is shaping up very, very nicely so far. All right, let's take a quick look at Raph's sub-jobs here next. Her main job sub's going to come with 2 additional skills. The first one's going to be a range 3 cross AoE. It's got a 185% mod, and it will carry a 25% chance to doom your targets. So this one's okay, nothing amazing here. Doom does take 4 turns to count down. In autoplay, I've never really found that to be hugely impactful. The match is often over, before it really has had a chance to take effect. The second skill I think is a lot more interesting. It's a short range AoE heal with a 210 potency on it, and it is an instant cast one as well, which is very important for a unit like this. So I think that she could definitely put out a bit of healing with this skill, especially if you've spec'd her into healing power with the Trust Stones. So it could be really nice to heal up herself for the party, maybe even in a second strike for Guild War. I think though you just want to make sure that the other teammates are moving into her first so that you didn't cause any other issues there and kind of her ability to be out in front of the team. So I do like this second skill here. I think maybe there's some niche usage that you could find with it. Otherwise though, Raph does have Scholar and Spellblade here, which are 2 other pretty decent sub-jobs. Now Scholar is going to be bringing in a couple of additional buffs. One of them is a cast time reduction. I'd say it's really only relevant for this job here because the majority of the skills in her main kit are instant castable. I can't really see myself ever wanting to use it over her 2 main job buffs either, so there is that to think about as well. Either way though, Law of Geoabsorption, it's a pretty decent skill. It's going to give her access to another diamond AoE attack, and it is that strike damage, which a lot of units are still very weak to that in the game. Of course, it does have that damage absorption effect tied into it as well, which is always nice to kind of help out your sustain there, especially on a tank. Now, last but not least, we do have Spellblade as well. I think the main draw is going to be that taunting spell, which is going to give her access to an active hate ability. That one, of course, gives 12 active hate if you're able to land that. I think, though, that getting the AI to use it in battle is going to be a little bit difficult because she does have several other range 5 moves with higher modifiers. Besides that skill, though, I do really like Dark Blade because that one does have a debuff cleanse on it, which could be pretty useful if she's able to get that one off. So I do think that any of these 3 sub-job options could be viable for her. It just kind of depends on the build that you're going for. I think, though, that maybe as a default choice, I might start with that Scholar job. Now, we will have a new vision card that's going to be coming along with Raph, and it's roughly translated as Great Demon. And this one is yet another Dark Esper as well. It's going to be a very nice general tanking Esper for her. It does come in with area resist, HP, and crit evade nodes, and then it does have some defense and strike resistance there on top of it, so it very well could be worth picking up, just for this Esper here alone. The card itself is also very nice though. This one's going to be effective for the Mace, Katana, Dagger, and then the Black Mage staff groups. We have very nice base stats as we've seen on a lot of recent cards. Does have some agility there to go along with nice HP and magic. We do have a very nice bestowed ability on there as well. I really like this one. It's going to get 10 area resist as well as that 10% magic. We're then going to have the job limited party effects there with the slash res, strike res, and then importantly that 15% agility. So I do always like the agility cards as sort of a foundational card for building any party or job synergy team. So this one I think will be a particularly nice one to look at, especially if you're going to be focusing on any of these jobs that are included. In terms of elemental synergy, as of now, dark and light are definitely going to be the most featured on this particular card. So I think this one could even be a very nice combo if you happen to have picked up dark Bahamut's. Maybe if you were looking at mixing dark and light together, you could maybe find some interesting parties there. The top 3 units there for dark though I think is almost too good if you look at it. Raph, Sephiroth, and Dark Fina, that is just going to be a killer team, and this card enables it perfectly. And then obviously there with Raph, featured, she is a frontline tank as we've been kind of seeing here in the review. So for the Mace group, this is actually going to be their first tank that you can kind of put out there in front and kind of build a job synergy team around her. Now believe it or not, Mace has actually been one of the most developed job groups so far, and I have actually prepared a new view to look specifically at that, so let's jump on to there next. And this is something that I have actually started to look at in my last couple of videos, and we're going to be looking specifically here at the job group for this unit and sort of the VC potential there that's going to be within the group. So I have been doing a lot of work on this to sort of perfect it, and this is the end results. I have a new infographic here for Raph, and this great demon card that's coming in with her will mark the 8th vision card that we have seen for this particular Mace weapon group. In terms of the actual effects on the cards though, they certainly have leaned a lot more in the physical attacker direction, so definitely not ideal for the units that are going to be within this particular group. We do though have a few hidden gems here, amongst the cards. I really like that Queen Mashari card for the area resistance, of course the Great Demon card that we were just looking at for the agility, but then also the Perrine card, Inherited Wills. You can get that reaction block and then the HP as well. Some of the units here within the group do have access to some strike attacks, so even that can be pretty solid for the group, on top of that. So, I think that we are starting to see maybe the makings of a pretty solid sort of magical job team here that could be, looked at into the future once we have all of these pieces. Obviously, to make all that work, you would 100% need this unit Raph here, but I do think that that gives some potential here. Maybe if you haven't built up the dark element in the past, maybe this is an avenue that's, if you do like Raph, that gives you some value there, if you have some of these other pieces, and another way that you can work with her even outside of an element perspective. Now, speaking of maces, there is going to be a new one coming in with Raph as well. So here I'm going to be featuring the magic version of that. The unconditional passive on this one is going to be that 15 healing power, something that I don't think we've seen on a mace, as of yet. That alone I don't think is all that amazing though. It's just 5 more than we can get on a Trust Stone. The conditional effects though are where this one really shines. It's going to give 20% magic res penetration, but then importantly 8 area resist. So this is actually very similar to the spear weapon that we saw with Dialdo recently. Now the condition for those passives does include Raph's job, as well as some older mace jobs including Clerics, Arithmeticians, and Steeled Queen, which is Queen Mashari's group. So definitely a nice way for those units to be able to pick up some additional area resist here as well, something that they haven't had access to on other equipment in the past. Alright guys, flashing over to our timeline now for 2023. When do we actually expect to see this unit Raph? Well, currently we are estimating sometime in late July. That would actually put her as the final unit before the collaboration with Final Fantasy V begins. Now in the time leading up to her, we won't be really seeing any other units, either for the Dark Element or for her job group either that we're aware of at this time. On top of that, no other Mace Vision cards are going to be coming in, outside of the one from the Fullmetal Alchemist raid, which we are set to get this week. So really the only other piece that might be relevant would be Dark Bahamut, and that one we should be seeing next week, after Winged Stern. And that one, of course, does enable you to mix both the dark and the light elements. So at that point, Stern or Miranda here on the list could become, of interest. I think though that, due to that Great Demon card that we looked at, a lot of folks I think are probably going to be looking to stay right at home within the dark element, since it just synergizes so well with Sephiroth, who, at this point, I think almost every player in Global has invested into. It does seem, though, that Gumi is trying to balance the scales a little bit for this infusion of dark power. We are going to be looking at Bartz as a free unit coming in with Final Fantasy V. He is a free 100 cost light unit, so that is definitely something to look forward to there as well. All right, guys, so here is a mock build that I've put together for Raph. And recently, I think I've been doing kind of a little bit more niche or hyper-focused builds. This week, I wanted to do something a little bit more all-around, a little bit more balanced. So we're not going to be building against any one unit or meta here with this particular build. What I also wanted to do was feature that Great Demon Vision card that we were just looking at. So of course, she does have to be paired here with Sephiroth and Dark Fina. It's just an amazingly balanced team. It's not going to be easy to take down by any means for anyone. So for equipment, we're going to be using that new mace that we looked at, and I am going to be pairing that with the +6 survival vest. That way we have both area resist and unit resist covered here in these two slots. For a TMR, I'm going to be using Dialdo's. It's one of my favorite new TMRs for tank units, just because of that combination of high agility and high crit avoidance. If you don't manage to get that one, Ayaka's Sacred Step is a very good substitute. It's the stats on it are very, very close. Now for her Esper, I am going to be using Great Demon. I love all the tank stats in there, especially the area resist that's coming there. For vision cards, my agility is going to be covered again by that Great Demon card. Unit resist is covered by Anima, and then area resist is going to be covered there on Garvel's card. Now I am also doubling up on the area resist, as I do have Dark Bahamut there in the secondary slot. And then lastly, we're going to pull in HP from the Persona card, and then Magic Up from Dark Fina's card. Now instead of that Magic Up card there, you could potentially look at pulling in the Demon Wall card or even Diabolos, and I think either of those would be fine options too to kind of pull in some additional light or dark resistance. Now moving down into the Trust Stones, a lot of times on tanks I like to go HP and AP. Of course, Raph kind of being magical skilled, she's going to start with a lot more AP than your average physical tank. And I think also with her lower end agility, an agility set for her is going to be a no-brainer. I think that's going to be pretty much an always on for her. For defensive passives, I do like some various debuff resistances for her, especially just to kind of stack along with that general debuff, self-buff that she had that we looked at. It's going to make it extremely hard to land, any type of imperil or break on her, or even an agility debuff that we're covering here. Now, in addition to that, I'm also going to be adding some crit evade as well as my standard HP and luck stones. Now, for my offensive passives, I'm going to be taking that cast time reduction, just in case I do want to use her on the scholar job. And then in addition to that, I'll fill in some other offensive passives there for Dex, Magic, Spirit Pen, Reaction Block, and Dark Attack. Now, as you can see in the stats here, this is just a sight to behold for this unit. Almost 14,000 HP here for Raph. Keep in mind, 0 reincarnations included in these stats here. So, if you did go all the way with this unit, you could potentially see upwards of 17k, maybe even 18,000 HP. The rest of the numbers also looking pretty good all around here for Raph, outside of the accuracy numbers, the dex and luck and etc. But of course, we're not focusing on accuracy at all here with Raph. We're going to just have her relying on that guaranteed hit that she has. I think the true standouts here in the build, though, are going to be that AoE resistance and the unit resistance, coming in at 55 and 45 respectively. Keep in mind that's also not going to be including her self-buff of area resistance, so once she does have that re-raise online, 80% area resistance here for Raph. Absolutely incredible on a frontline tank. I was also very happy with the crit avoidance level I was able to get to with Raph, coming in at 154%, even despite having a lower end luck total here in the build. So what is my verdict today on Raph? Starting with the positives, this is a unit who has access to both unit and area resistance as part of her base mitigations, both of which are impenetrable in the current game state. On top of that, very nice base defenses to back it up, and Raph has access to just about any tanking tool that you can think of in the modern game, including a buffable auto heal, 50% general barrier, self re-raise, general debuff resistance, and more, while also coming in with the new modern standard of 10 undispellable hate to keep the enemy's attention focused her way. Now, this unit is going to be bringing a lot more to the table than just tanking prowess. Raph has access to several nice utility options with Diamond AoE Full Break, 25% Dark Imperil, and dispels to both Immortal Spirit and Shell, to name a few. On the more negative side, as we've talked about, her stats across the board really weren't all that great outside of her hit points. and that did include key stat areas like agility, so you will need to pay particular attention to that in your build. Her accuracy also is not at a good spot, but she does have a guaranteed hit on her Job 25 upgrade that will help her out there substantially. Now, as a unit whose damage scales off of magic, this is someone that many people will be running at a high faith value, and if you do, she will be much more susceptible towards status ailments and magical damage that she incurs. On the flip side though, if you do drop her faith to mitigate that issue, her already stunted damage will suffer greatly. And I do think that that aspect could be one of the weakest areas for this unit. Raph is going to be also naturally weak towards that pierce damage, but it is a very small weakness, and her other defenses and HP are so good that, I'm really not all that worried about it. So summing it all up here, guys, and I really have to be honest on this one, I really had to reach to come up with these negatives here on this unit. This is a complete unit top to bottom with very, very few flaws. Dark is really scoring big time with this unit. And as an element, outside of a short period there after Dwayne was released, Dark has never really had a top tier tank in this game. Well, that is no longer a concern now with Raph. They have perhaps one of the best, if not the best one to ever have been seen in this game. And if I'm being honest, unless Gumi is prepared to really power creep the game here at the 3.5-year anniversary, we will be seeing this unit and the dark element in the upper echelons of the game for some time to come. So there it is, guys. That is my future look into Raph. I know that this is one that a lot of folks have been waiting for. I have been getting a lot of questions about her. She is absolutely worth saving for, and I imagine we're going to be seeing a lot of her out there in the battlefields of Ardra. I know personally I'm going to be setting 42k aside for her and going all in for her when she drops here for us in Global in a few months. I want to know though, what are you guys thinking out there? What is the best way to actually get to this unit? Because, as I've been studying her, there are very few ways to do it. What will Gumi do in the meantime here in Global? Will they actually release some GLEX unit to sort of counterbalance her, as we've seen them do sometimes in the past? Let me know all your thoughts about that in the comments down below. If you enjoyed the video today, hit that like button. It really helps me out with the YouTube algorithm. And if you like what I'm doing here on the channel, hit that subscribe button if you want to see more. And that's really all that I have to say for today. So as always, stay safe out there, and I'll see you guys in the next one.